Jabba, I need this message outside. At this point, it's not just about a dialogue between you and me. Because we already know these things. This is about a dialogue that needs to be put out in the world, and for that I need you to sit the fuck down.
Asta vreau să o pun. Așa se înceapă.
Da? Sit the fuck down. Ah, yeah, you're right. That is a good one. Okay, we'll do that. Right. So, I got so excited that... Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, as we can see, we have changed the angle of the video because after my previous video, I've concluded that this is my good side. So we're going to do this for a while and see how it goes. Right. I woke up. I'm not going to start with my dream. I had a nice dream. I had absolutely no reason to be angry when I woke up, but I got really angry throughout the morning and I was like, this is the perfect morning to make a video about the coronavirus. Yes. Because, yeah, because I feel like I can finally articulate what I have to say about the virus. Well, it's not about the virus per se that I want to talk. It's about people's reaction, the world's reaction, individuals' reaction to the coronavirus, individual concerns about it as well. And I'm not going to delve into any of the conspiracy theories, because at this point it's a pandemic. I don't care where it started, and I don't care where it is, because it's everywhere, right? It is now universally acknowledged as a threat to everyone, right? And I don't care about the myths and the truths about how to prevent infection and everything. We're just gonna go with the worst fucking possible outcome. Let's say it's deadly, and let's say it's very easy to to get it, really, to contract from other spreaders. Let's assume the worst possible outcome, because I feel that that doesn't fundamentally alter what we're going to talk about. And what I'm going to talk about are reactions, right? So, of course, you know, first there's panic. And that, I think, in Peterson's way of acknowledging what this is, he calls it slavery, entrapment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there are people... So they panic, they go to the supermarkets and they buy all the detergent and all the toilet paper. They want to feel like they have a little bit of control over the situation, which is potentially very threatening to them. So they're enslaved by the fear. Yes, and then that's all they can think about, and that is a state of mind which I'm going to call, so in astrology and tarot readings, that's called the dark night of the soul. And we're going to come back to that, I think. So that's one option in slavery. For who doesn't know who I'm talking about, this is Jordan B. Peterson. He's an evolutionary psychologist. He's a very sort of controversial figure out there, but I feel that's mostly because most of what he has to say is very grossly misunderstood. But there'll be more on that maybe in future videos. So in slavery, then there's the people who have all these conspiracy theories about how, you know, it's man-made, it's not man-made, it came from space, it's gonna... You know, the only way we can survive it is if we become a subterranean species or like whatever the fuck. I don't know the theories because I don't care. Mostly because I think that's not a good position to put yourself into either. It's because you've gone to the excess of the other position. You're trying so hard not to be enslaved by the virus, not die and have very much control, that you become tyrannical about controlling the narrative. And I believe that equally that's equally self-delusional. And then there's the middle part of, so the midway between enslavement by fear and tyranny. That's more of a kind of a position, an attitude that you might have with regards to others. You're like, you know how threatening this virus really is, so, you know, and you try to boss everyone else around, and if they don't do what they say, if they don't do what you say, obviously, like, you know, you need to stay away from them or force them into it for their own good, or, you know. And I think you'll find it very easily to make a correlation between political beliefs as well. And you have authoritarianism in both right-wing and left-wing ideologies, where, you know, we know better. Either the state knows better or the individual knows better, to the extent that, you know, it can force other people into doing things whether they know it or not. And this is the thing. In authoritarianism, so left-wing politics, people know it and willingly subject to it. In right-wing politics, the extreme right, people usually don't know it. And then they're manipulated, really, but they're doing it willingly, but they don't know. Anyway, this is what fear makes out of people. And now we're talking about the coronavirus fear specifically. And there's a midway between these two extremes, and it's, Peterson says that's negotiation. And to have negotiation, to harness the power to negotiate, you need to have either a little anger, because that empowers you enough to put you in a negotiating position, or a little bit of humility, because that brings you back down from your high horse and makes you aware of how dangerous you can become. And let me just see, because I had it written down somewhere over here. The point is, the extremes make you either susceptible to being abused or to abuse others yourself. And negotiation is really the place where you want to be. And how does negotiation happen within this whole coronavirus scenario? Well, I would argue that it happens, and I think Peterson would agree, and I think a lot of people would agree really, because this is something that comes across in many, many discourses. It's either through comedy or through art. And this is why I want to talk about the coronavirus, Daniel Sloss's penis, comedy, and art. Yes, and then we'll get to why. Okay, let me tell you why. So, what happened as a result of the coronavirus? Well, the family was supposed to get a dog, and because of the coronavirus outbreak, we couldn't get a dog because we never had time, and here we are without a dog. And then the family was supposed to go to Mallorca, and I was supposed to go with the family to Mallorca, and I had shopped, and I got pretty bathing suits, and I got pretty dresses, and then, there are travel restrictions all over the world, and Spain is a no-go zone, so guess what? I'm not going to Mallorca. So I lost my dog, and I lost my holiday, and, I'm subscribed to the Queen's Hall here in Edinburgh. That's where people, that's where a lot of these classical music concerts are being held, and I get the newsletter. So about, a few weeks ago, I got the newsletter that Daniel Sloss is going to have his Fringe show at the Queen's Hall, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm buying tickets, Daniel Sloss is funny, lol. So I bought 2 tickets for me and Rebecca, and where did I buy these tickets, Rebecca? Where did I buy them?
When?
Where? Where are the seats?
In the front row.
They're in the front row. And you know what that means? Because everyone, including Daniel Sloss, makes all these, funny jokes about how big his penis is. And I'm like, oh my god, I have a front row seat to see that for myself. And I was like, oh no. Then this whole notion of the coronavirus thing hit me, and I was like, holy mother of God, that's a gathering of more than 99 people. I mean, that's a gathering, period. That's a gathering of more than 3 people. And the coronavirus, as a totalitarian dictator that it is, now states that more than 3 people cannot coalesce in one place.
More than 3?
I don't know, I'm making a funny joke. I'm making a joke.
Okay.
It's a joke. If 3 people gather in my name, blah, 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 that's what God said. I'm saying that in communist Romania, people weren't allowed to gather and have opinions.
Sorry, I'm so sleepy.
You're so sleepy, I know. Where I'm angry, so I'm gonna have to be witty enough for the both of us. Yes. So it being a gathering and everything, this whole coronavirus thing doesn't manage to, doesn't subside until then. I might lose the opportunity of seeing Daniel Sloss's penis up front. And then I'm gonna fucking take it personal, because coronavirus is taking all my pleasures in life, and I'm angry about that. That makes me angry. So therefore, I want to be put in a negotiating position. So here I am, negotiating. I want to embarrass coronavirus for the entire world to see. And there are only 2 ways of doing that: empowering the rest of you guys and the rest of the world so that you yourselves are in a negotiating power with the coronavirus, so that you don't get dominated by the fear of it killing you. Not that that's not a possibility. Yes, the coronavirus is killing people. But it's very, very reasonable that we wash our hands for 20 seconds, do the dance, and, have our jokes. Exactly. We wanted to make a dance. We wanted to make a video of the Vietnam coronavirus dance TikTok challenge. And we wanted to have the kids in them, and we're going to put funny masks and everything, but they got too shy. That's why we never put the video out there. So, let's pretend this is a substitution. Because we wanted to make a joke about it, because I think that the only way we gain negotiating power with this fear that we'll either use against other people or that other people use against us is to laugh at it and make art about it, because that helps us mediate the fear. That helps us integrate the fear in a rational way that's non-confrontational.
Yep.
Yes. Yes. And I want to tell you why. Like, and I'm going to use two examples to explain why. I'm going to use two examples. One is the tarot. So the tarot is, like most of you know, you don't have to believe it's true. I'm just telling you the underlying narrative behind it. And the underlying narrative behind the tarot is what they call the Fool's Journey. So I'm going to show you the 12 Arcana cards. You won't see them. Maybe you'll see them. I'm not sure if you'll see them. I'm going to use like this guy, Matt Hughes. I made this really pretty Art Nouveau deck that I've started using to teach myself how to draw, right? In addition to teaching myself how to draw, I also used the tarot as a self-analysis tool. Yes, and that astrology and many other discourses, but like psychoanalysis, a lot of Jung and Freud, and I think you'll be able to find a lot of Freud's archetypes here. I have not discussed this previously with Raveca. This is all going to be happening on the spot, so I'm going to throw some ideas over at you guys, but also mostly at Raveca, and we'll see what from Jung and Freud comes out of it.
Yeah.
Right. As far as I can tell, there are 21 Arcana cards, and I'm going to very, very briefly take you through all of them. You need to understand the tarot cyclical. So this journey, once it's completed, it can start all over again with another narrative, another lesson to be learned, another conflict to be resolved, and another advantage to be gained. It propels you forward. There's always a next move. And this is relevant for a reason that I'll come back to later. So you have the first card. It's the Fool, right? The Fool is usually depicted as this super bright, super cheery young man that just jumps off a cliff with his little dog. A point of that is that in order to embark on a journey of becoming more aware, more learned, more mature, more prepared, more, harmonious with whoever you're interacting with, you need a little bit of ignorance. You can't be well informed, because if you are, then you think too much and you can't make the leap. So it's always a very joyous card, a very like of someone naive, but because of that naivety, has the enthusiasm to just leap off, take a leap of faith, basically. The degree, or let's say the magnitude of the leap of faith depends on what risks this individual is willing to take, and those risks are informed by his previous experiences, so keep that in mind.
And he has the dog, I'm sorry.
And he has the dog. There was no corona. Right. And this is the Magician, is the second card. The Magician is usually depicted as a young man, and what this means, and let me just take the book, because I wanna be accurate, like I don't want to say stuff that doesn't, the people can't relate to. So it says the Magician connects the spirit to the physical, at least in tarot. So that means that as above, so below. What that really means is that having the knowledge that there's the structure of the cosmos, the underlying structure of the cosmos is repeated in a smaller scale within human lives, you can use that to predict and generate the things you want. So this is a card of immense confidence. You think that you know so much about the way the world works, because you have a set of experiences, right? That you can do whatever you want, that you can make anything happen. It's really, and sometimes we need that energy just to believe that things are true enough that it makes other things that you want to do plausible. It makes things true enough, Raveca. That's also one of Peterson's words. The Magician. Right. So he says he's the master of all four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. He's telling you that you hold all the tools to manifest your desires into reality. Creativity, skill, focus, and desire are the forces that he reveals to you in order to accomplish any goals. Right. Keep in mind, these are at the beginning. Then you have the High Priestess. And this is so this is, think about intuition. Like, that things are true, but you don't know why. You just have a gut feeling. Your intuition tells you. This is the High Priestess. This is kind of the underlying energy of the world, giving you messages that aren't necessarily, not through conscious mechanisms, not through language, not necessarily learning. It's something you just know. right? Something you don't know. She's in between two worlds. So like she embodies the eternal feminine spirit. She's the guardian of the unconscious, who guides us to look inward and listen to our own feelings and intuition. This is why, let's say like in very broad terms, this is why I analyze my own dreams. And this is why I trust my subconscious more than I trust my conscious. Because I've tried trusting my consciousness for a very long time, and I got depressed, and I got insomnia, and I became suicidal. So I was like, let's try listening to this for a change, and good things came of it. Then we have the Empress, the eternal feminine energy, the feminine archetype.
Yeah.
Then we have the Emperor, the masculine archetype, right? The eternal masculine, right? And the assumption is that if you're undergoing to the Fool's journey, you have both these energies. So the Fool doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have a gender. The Emperor and the Empress are constitutive energies of all individuals. We have feminine traits, we have masculine traits. So me yelling right now, that's my very masculine energy. Me yelling to help the world protect itself from fear, that's a very feminine energy, I would say. I mean, I would just want to
if you meet someone that's masculine energy.
Exactly. If I tell the kids, who's in charge? That's my masculine enemy. And if I tell the kids, I love you, that's a feminine energy, even though it sounds masculine. Right. Hierophant. This is a fun one because I had a very problematic relationship to the Hierophant. The Hierophant represents established tradition. The stuff that, as a teenager, I thought was the stuff cliche is made of. So I was inherently distrustful of cliche, only to come back upon my Saturn return around 29 years to acknowledge that maybe people were right about that shit, or at least to give it a second thought. This is that. And there's a reason why I drew the Hierophant. That was the first card I ever practiced drawing. It was because I was having this realization. Tradition. Keep in mind. Then you have the Lovers card. So the Lovers, contrary to popular belief, does not represent love. It represents choices. You're faced with the choice. And this is the constitutive element of action, right? In order to do something, you choose between an option and the option of not doing that or doing something different. And if you don't have a choice, you're just sitting there, right? Like stagnation. Action represents an option between doing something or not doing something or doing something different, or which is the same as not doing the first something. So we'll just simplify it, right? And then you have the Chariot, which represents progression, things occurring, action being taken through choices. That's why, like, the Chariot, in most of its depictions, is always depicted as being drawn by two horses or two lions or two of something. This is because you have options, and it's the option that generates the action, right? Then you have the Strength card. Of course, we know why we need that. We need the belief that whatever we want to do can be carried out because we are strong enough. Like, this one's self-explanatory, I think. This is like, maybe like if I were to speak about mindfulness and stuff like that, and even like within Hindu religion, this is what they refer to as the energy of the sacral chakra. This keeps you going, man. Strength, right? The will to stay alive, basically, if you think about it very simplistically. Then we have the Hermit card, and this is what happens when, you don't know what to do. So you have some options when you don't know what to do. You can retreat into solitude, outside, like away from outside influences, in order to make a decision, right? And gather your thoughts. And that's when you need to not be, you need to be left to your own devices, right? You have the Wheel of Fortune. This is basically a reminder. Actually, let me just get to the actual description. The Wheel of Fortune shows that that opportunity is abundant. So no matter whether you make choices or not, there are always options. There are options. There always are. We don't live isolated from the social world. We don't live in isolation from the actual material reality. There's always options about what to interact with or who to interact with and what may come of it. They're always there. We have an infinite, this reminds us that we have free will, right? It's just there for us to make, if you don't make choices, you don't have free will because you're not doing anything, right? This is the reminder that you're in the world, you have choices, and you have the choice of making a choice. Or you have the choice of not making the choice, in case in which you're not doing anything. So this is a reminder of that. Then you have the justice card, the reminder that, you know, with or without you, the world moves on. Justice is blind. Like, so the justice card reveals that an outcome will be determined from the decisions you have made. But to put it in simpler terms, like not make it so esoteric. You choose not to make a choice, nothing happens. You choose to make a choice, things will happen even if they're not the things you expect or want or desire. But at least you won't be stagnating. Things will be occurring. You know, I mean, you won't just be locked away in your house like the Japanese hikikomori, the people who like stay inside their apartments for years gaming and kind of like within virtual reality escapism. There is such a thing. There's a phenomenon like that in Japan. Look it up. And this is one of my favorite cards because it's very counterintuitive. It's the Hanged Man, and the Hanged Man doesn't mean that you hang yourself. I mean, it does, but not to kill yourself. You hang yourself to change your perspective, and that's why you hang yourself upside down. You hang yourself upside down because you need new information in order to make a decision which you assume is impossible to make. There is no decision that's impossible to make. There's just your assumption that decision is impossible to make. And my suggestion is that the reason why you think it is that way is that you're deluding yourself in some fashion and you haven't discovered how yet. And the Hangman reveals how you delude yourself, and it makes the decision a much easier process to undergo. But people don't really know what it implies. And I'll tell you guys what the tarot says it implies. It implies part of you dying. The death card. Specifically in my case, I had internal conflicts between my subconscious mind, which had its own set of memories and database of experiences that my conscious mind didn't have access to, because that's what the subconscious is, isn't it? And I was depressed and had insomnia, so what I assumed was that obviously I have an inner conflict. And I always assumed is that my unconscious mind is wrong about something. And then, you know, someone revealed to me that, hey, have you ever thought about thinking that your conscious mind might be wrong? And I was like, no, let's see what happens when I do that. So I took all of my assumptions about the world, life, and everything, and I started checking them and breaking them apart into constituent clauses and checking, do I agree with this one? Do I agree with that one? Do I agree with this one? Do I agree with that one? Until I came across one of them that I actually didn't agree with. And I tried to get new information about it, and when I did, part of my conscious mind, in all its fucking arrogant certainty, died because I was wrong. My conscious mind was wrong. One of my assumptions about my, experiences from my childhood were wrong. They were wrong. I interpreted them incorrectly. So when I went and revisited that with a more balanced viewpoint, that's a temperance card, all of a sudden it was revealed to me, and man, I was so sure I was right, because I'm an Aquarius, right? And I think I'm a super smart ass and that everyone should listen to me, and if they don't, they're idiots. Do you know how it is to fall from that height? And what do I do when that happens? I'm like, no, I can't possibly be right. No, that is impossible. I'll prove to everyone I'm gonna go and get drunk and do drugs and have sex, and because I'm right and there's no way I can be wrong. Until I was like, okay, so that's the devil. And what happens? Eventually, if you give yourself the space to really think about it really well, you realize, nah man, I was actually wrong. And the height from which you fall, especially if you're as arrogant as me, because I'm fucking arrogant, is the most humbling fucking experience in the world. And that's what cured my arrogance, right? The acceptance that maybe sometimes I am wrong, and I can be so fucking wrong, I can almost become suicidal. So what happens when, part of you dies? You're like, my entire world has been fucking shattered apart and I need to rebuild. What the fuck do I rebuild it from? And this is the Star card, which happens to be the Aquarius card. This is the card of being genuine. And a way to be genuine is not to listen only to your conscious mind. It's to listen to your emotional nature, the moon, and your intuition and your conscious mind, and bringing these into balance, all of these, brings about judgment, the judgment day, a reformation of what you truly are that doesn't take into account brings about judgment, the judgment day, a reformation of what you truly are that doesn't take into account how angry your conscious mind is, how whiny your emotional side is, or how confused your intuition is, because once you do this and they come into balance, you have access to the world. And what does the world offer? More opportunities. That's what it offers. Now, so I give you this narrative. It's a beautiful narrative. It's a beautiful metaphor. Like, that's why I listen to tarot readings. Not because I assume the tarot is right. It's because the tarot is, not because I assume the tarot is true. I do think it's right. I don't assume the tarot is true. I don't know for sure. I don't know if there's a correlation between the macrocosmos and the microcosmos. I don't know for sure. I suspect there is, but I don't know for sure, and I can't prove it. So I'm not telling anyone to believe it's true. But it's true enough for me to provide a narrative framework for me to make what I think are healthy decisions for me, which have allowed me to get rid of depression, get rid of insomnia, become quite self-confident about my research, quit smoking, and start this fucking YouTube channel. Okay, that is that. Now, the second framework that I wanted to talk about was what I call the algorithm. The algorithm. Right, I realized that it's maybe like the name puts people off, right? And I thought it was a standard model of conflict resolution, and you can find it all over the place, including in the metaphor of the Fool's Journey in the Tarot, and as far as Jordan Peterson, when he actually psychologically talks about how to solve conflicts when you're into conflicts. But I think I might have been wrong about the way I named it. It's a bit misleading. It's because I saw it strictly from my perspective, and it wasn't until Chris told me that he looked at it. They had looked at a very good friend of mine, looked at the algorithm, right? I mean, he doesn't know we're friends yet, but I think we're friends. He looked at the algorithm and he said, "Oh, this is a learning process." And I was like, I never thought about it that way. And then we had a conversation at the cafe yesterday, and I said, "You could probably call this manipulation, if you like." And I was like, so the four or five steps. I'm gonna break them down for you in a second. That I'm about to, I'm gonna describe 4 or 5 steps. I call it conflict resolution. Chris calls it learning. I'm not sure what you call it yet. Whatever the first word comes to mind when I will describe these steps, that's your trauma. And I will tell you why that's your trauma. I'll tell you why that is. So, step 1. Establish rules or things you absolutely believe to be true. One for each party who's interacting, right? Let me just clarify. To me, it was conflict resolution, so I believe that this takes place between 2 people, or the conscious and subconscious. And that when you resolve this conflict, you can move forward. You can either collaborate with someone else and make something happen, or collaborate with your own subconscious and get rid of all sorts of mental health issues. And in my case, it was, I don't actually remember, but I know I used it to break up with my boyfriend, and that was quite because so I'm going to use that example. My rule, my axiom, the thing I absolutely couldn't doubt was that I cannot be in a relationship if I am not trusted, if my judgment isn't trusted and respected for the way it works, right? Because I believe I'm stable enough to carry out a relationship, and I want to be loved and to offer love, right? And so that was what I believed to be true. And what my boyfriend at the time wanted was, so his absolute no-go zone is he can't be in a relationship with someone who is unstable, whose behavior you can't predict. Because then he feels like he can't manage the relationship, and you have a lack of control, and no one likes that because that's scary. And I was like, okay, cool. Step 2. And it's very important. This is the underlying step that justifies faith, religious faith. It's just the degree to which you can carry out this step is, it depends on your rules. And it depends on your risk assessment, and the degree to which you can take a risk under the possibility that you might be wrong. I don't take very big risks. So I cut them down really small. Right, and I said, okay, which is why I like this algorithm. I said, step 2, both parties
or like in the event that this is a learning process, you and the information commits to the assumption that the rules established at number 1 or the axioms established at number 1 are true for these 5 steps. For the one instance that you carry out this 5 steps. That's it. You don't know if they're true. One of you might be wrong. Both of you might be wrong. But there's usually one. If there's stagnation, either one or the other is wrong. If there's no stagnation, there's no conflict, so no problem, right? Okay. Step 3. You take these axioms, these rules, and you break them down to underlying clauses, right? What does it mean to be... you clarify the terminology. What does it mean to be respected? What does it mean to be trusted? What does it mean to, what does it mean to be stable? Right. And then you kind of you carry it down, and then you say, well, for instance, for me, to be stable means to have predictable behavior in a consistent way in time, right? Because if you do, then I know how to react to you, and if I know how to react to you and you're stable, I feel like I have control over the situation. To me, so this is just an example. I'm not going to get into the whole dynamic of my breakup process. I'm just trying to exemplify the algorithm, right? And then you break them down, and if you find one at any point where you check the rules against all these new pieces of information that you gather. And then there should be a novel piece of information or for one of the parties or the other. So for instance, in my breakup story, I argued that my behavior is stable in time because I apply this very algorithm in every decision-making process I make. And then I proved that is the case. And I did that by asking the following question. And what I did was I created an internal conflict for my then boyfriend. And I said, in order for me to have to feel loved and my judgment to be respected and trusted, you will probably commit some of your time to spend with me because you enjoy it, right? Because we enjoy one another's company and we take pleasure in being with one another. And he said, yes. And I said, okay, cool. I said, okay. And I said, well, you assume that my behavior is not consistent in time. Okay. Because that was the assumption, that I'm unstable. I was like, cool, okay. And then I demonstrated that the conflict isn't within me, it's within him. And I asked the following question. If I ask you today, whether you're willing to spend some time with me, knowing that I'm unstable, and knowing that at the end of the day I'll ask you the exact same question for the following day. What I actually did was made the risks small enough to be mitigatable for him to indulge in taking the risk for one day. But then he knew that, so it's in mathematical induction. If you spend the day with me today, will you do it for tomorrow, which is today plus 1 day? And if today plus 1 day becomes the new today, which it does, because at the end of that day I was going to ask the question again, is it true for today plus tomorrow? And then if it's true for every day for today plus another day, which is tomorrow. If every day it's true for tomorrow, it means that it's actually committing an incalculable amount of time to spending with me. But then that can happen because I'm unstable, and that was his axiom, his rule, right? So the conflict wasn't within me. It was within him. And then, and this is very important, step 4, retreat and process. You leave the room. You both leave the room. Because whoever got the new piece of information has to go back and check this new piece of information against the set of experiences in his life that told him he knows what stable means, but he's just been proven he doesn't. And then he needs to obviously update the entire collection of life experiences that has informed his opinion about life, the universe, and everything. And that's a painful process, okay? That's the tower. That's falling from great heights, from the heights of your certainty. It's really painful. I know, because I went through it. That's called trauma processing. It fucking sucks. Right, well, it's very, very painful, very painful. But the thing is, that you need a change of perspective, the hanged man. That's why you need new information. Without that new information, you can't change your perspective. And when you have to give up on something that was essential to the very core of your personality, a part of you dies. And then, of course, you're going to resist it, the devil. No, I'm definitely right. I'm going to go and get drunk in all the pubs and be super rowdy and, whatever. Like, that's what my dad does, For me, it was doing for me, it was sleep. But of course, that was a problem when you can't sleep. so, yeah. And then, I started sleeping, and all of a sudden, I could talk to my subconscious. It was telling me, you're an idiot because of this, and this. And, by my conscious life, I was like, maybe my subconscious is right. Maybe I am an idiot because of this, and this. Yeah. So I updated my entire worldview, and as a consequence of that, I'm not depressed and I'm not an insomniac, and I quit smoking and started this YouTube channel, and now, goddammit, the coronavirus is ravishing the world. And after you retreat and process, which is going to happen after the coronavirus is going to be contained, and that will happen. It will take a little bit of time, and more people will sadly have to die for that. But the thing is, if we sit here and worry about how dangerous the coronavirus is, instead of making art or jokes or comedy about it, which very often brings us new pieces of information that change our perspective on the problem and help us find solutions which we believed were impossible to find because they don't exist. We assumed they don't exist. That gets us trapped in that fear. That makes us either tyrannical or enslaved by fear, or tyrannical towards others because we're trying to force other people to mitigate the fear for the good of everyone. Which is why, and that's usually leftist political thought is that. And I think fundamentally, this is why I'm a liberal, because it takes away the choice. And you can't take away people's choices because that doesn't mean negotiation. That means tyranny. Leftist, in all its mighty, glorious socialist dream, is tyrannical. It is just as tyrannical as right-wing politics can be. That's why I'm a liberal, because I have to respect other people's choices, because that's the only way the algorithm works, and conflicts are solved, and lessons are learned, and there's forward progress. If not, we all fucking die of the coronavirus. And that's why I've been yes, and step 5 is resolution. And resolution is essentially moving forward, and we can talk and we will, I think, in future episodes about how this algorithm and this fool's journey which we find in the Talmud, this is the underlying narrative to all religions, myths, and founding stories of, I believe so. Yeah. And it's essentially it's a reformulation of the eternal conflict between order and chaos. And because people assume that there can only be the one, and they think that should be order, and that is equated to what's good, and that's equated to what's God. And order, so order and chaos, which is bad, and it's usually the devil, and it's nature, and it's devastation, and it's death, and it's the coronavirus. But the point is, like in the like in Buddhism or Tao or most religions, the assumption is that there's no good and bad. There's order and chaos, and there's a little bit of each in the other, and achieving that balance is what gets us forward. And that's why, for instance, between this being enslaved by the fear of the coronavirus, or by using our fear of the coronavirus to be tyrannical towards other people, and then kind of. No one likes being locked in their home to isolate, but sometimes it's necessary. So I understand, for instance, why you need to be a little bit tyrannical if you want to contain a pandemic, right? But also people need to understand that we bear a responsibility. Yeah. And then if we make our own choice to self-isolate because we don't want to expose others to the risks of dying of the coronavirus, even if we don't die, just because, man, it's the only way we can beat this, then, people do actually have a choice here. It's not the government taking our rights to travel and shop, and have dogs and see Daniel Sloss's penis. It's also me facing my own responsibility that I'm part of containing this, right? So that's why if I don't see Daniel Sloss's penis up close through his trousers, I'm just in the front row, right? It's like, I'm not. Anyway, Daniel Sloss, if you're watching this, you'll know what I mean. We bear responsibility, so I don't think that we're really actually robbed of a choice here. But it's comedy, which is why I'm trying to make this funny, and also why I make a lot of very morbid coronavirus jokes, and which is also why, Daniel Sloss, I think you should come and face Edinburgh in the fringe like a fucking man, even if the coronavirus is still spreading havoc, because if you don't, look, I'll be sad, but it doesn't matter that I'll be sad. I'll eventually get to see your penis through its trousers at some point, whatever, and if I don't, there's still pictures on the internet and I'll survive. But Scotland might hold you accountable because these are your people, right? So, yeah, that's your choice to make, obviously. Your decision you'll know best if this is a risk you can mitigate or not, or if you'll be helping and empowering people more than you'll be putting them at risk. So, I don't know, but again, your choice. But art, and this is what I've been sharing a little bit of coronavirus related art on my Facebook, on my Instagram, which all of these are combinations of my name, which you can find by looking at the name of my name is Olivia Putir, P-U-T-Y, Papa Uniform Tango Yankee Echo Romeo. I used to be a receptionist. And the art that's coming up is amazing. I feel like Saatchi Gallery just put out a lovely digital piece about a pair of hands washing themselves under a tap, and what's coming from the tap is actually a river of diamonds, crystals. Like it's lovely, and and then I had that other picture with the cartoonist that made an illustration about Chinese women wearing face masks, but they also had like traditional theater faces on them. Looked like they were cheerleading, like a choreography with pom-poms that were essentially the coronavirus. It was brilliant, And this is the thing, like arts and comedy, they offer this change of perspective via which if you don't get that, you get stuck in the same loop and you try doing the same thing over and over again expecting different results, and that's, in my opinion, idiocy. And I have the right to say that because I've committed that, and I consider myself to have been an idiot for doing it, And, it got me stressed and it got me sick, and that's not good. Like, do you know what? Look at the irony of this, Rebecca. We're so adamant to not get sick that we're going to stress about it and fear it until we get sick of something else. Yeah, so that's my take on the coronavirus. This is quite a long video. It's 47 minutes, so applause to anyone who really actually takes the time to watch it. But this is to the artists, to the comedians, stand-up comedians, people can make funny things. Do it about the coronavirus because it helps people get through self-isolation and it helps them escape their own darkness of the soul. Is that what I said it was called? The dark night of the soul. Yeah, dark night of the soul. Right. And to the artists out there, please, please, please make art about this, because as soon as you make it, I want to exhibit it, but you probably don't want to exhibit it with me, but someone else will want to exhibit it, because if this is truly, it's a pandemic, right? It's a massive global event. Any art that has to do with it will be a piece of history. So make the art. Yes. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Do you have anything to add to that, or shall we leave any other further discussions for a future episode?
Yes, we can leave it for future episode.
We'll leave it for a future episode. Okay. Yeah, but it was funny, right? I tried to be funny.
Was.
Daniel Sloss. Can't wait to see your penis. That's it.